We're here tonight with Kenny Sims. He's the director of our research department and some very excellent staff that delivers amazing product for you and helps us move both at the bargaining table and our conversations with the state, provides us with information as leadership so that we can make better decisions, and does some absolutely amazing work. So I'm going to let Kenny introduce himself.
Thank you, Chair Hall, and good evening, everybody. Thank you, stewards, members, leaders in Local 1000. It's a pleasure to be able to spend a few minutes with you this evening and just share a little bit about what we do in the research department and some of the work that we've been going over, thinking about, trying to develop to support, all of our ongoing campaigns and getting ready for that very important contract campaign, which is coming up next year. So a little bit about me, I've probably met some of you before, but if not, my name is Kenny Sims, and I have been the research director for Local 1000 for about 2.5 years now. I started this role right before the pandemic hit. However, I'm not new to the Local 1000 family. Before I was in the research department, I was actually spent about 5 years in the contract negotiations department, working with all the bunk and the negotiating team, as well as Brooke Pierman, who's been here a few times on this show as well. So I did 5 years of negotiating. I worked directly with Unit 4 and Unit 15. Hello, all of my Unit 4s and 15s out there, but I've worked with all the units really. And then before I was in the contract department, which I started in 2015, I actually was just a research analyst in the research department. So I've gone back and forth a few times, Bill. And it's really been an incredible journey for me to support the locals, support the SEIU family, and to really integrate all that I've learned in all my roles so that when I come before you and we have a conversation about the work we do, I try to think about it as holistically as possible so that we can have, a good strategic approach to everything we do, which is what we're doing right now, and it feels really good to be here. Some of the things that we're sort of focusing on right now is there's two main things that I kind of obsess about. The first, of course, is the most important, I think, which is sort of the membership and all the work we do to support the membership campaign. And as you know, we're rolling out these programs that are starting to get full force. We're getting that energy up. We're starting to have that contact with all the state employees at the work sites. But I think about membership a little bit differently just because I'm in the research department. So I really think about sort of the membership trends and the membership numbers that we see, and how this really, how can we bring a research-based or data-driven based approach to thinking about really what's going on with our overall membership. The other thing I spend a lot of time thinking about also, especially in the months between April and May and in January, is always looking at the state budget. So in the research department, we focus a lot on supporting our legislative teams as they're looking at legislation. Omega Brewer was here a few weeks ago, and she talked about how she works in coordination with the research department. So we do budget analysis from the economic outlook and perspective to understand how the state's doing financially and how that impacts contract negotiations that may be coming up. So in that research unit that we work with, I have two incredible research staff who work with me. One is Jack McGlynn. He is an incredible, diligent number cruncher analyst. He's also a special investigator. He does great what we call opposition research. So he digs deep when he's doing company profiles or looking at specific sort of individuals that we have to have a strategic campaign with. And he's been here for a very long time. He knows this union really well and sort of what we stand for and how we approach the quality work that we do. And then we have Roger White, who's one of our other senior research analysts, who's just an incredible researcher. He's more of a policy legislative analysis kind of guy, but he also helps us with our surveys. And he's been here for a long time as well. So that's the research side of things. And we have, of course, support from Andrea Tapia, who's our administrative support. And then I know in the early part of May, you invited the apprenticeship unit to come on here as well. So Sarah McGinn
Sarah and Roger
and Ken. Yeah. So it was Sarah and Ken were
yes,
guests
Sarah,
here.
yes.
So within the research umbrella, we also have the apprenticeship unit, which you learned about a few weeks ago. So I kind of work with and support all those teams. But I really want to spend just a little bit of time thinking about how do we begin to understand where we're at today and how do we really think about what our membership trends are looking like. So I think we just to put it out there, let's just not hide anything. Right now, our membership rate has been declining. And what I have looked at is how has COVID impacted our membership rate over the last 2 years? Just to broadly speak, over the last 2 years, we've probably gone from around a 60% membership rate to a 53, 54% membership rate. And you really see that impact of COVID in those first few months where there was a precipitous drop and then a leveling out. And that really impacted the way we had to think about organizing and engagement and building our power because everybody really went to telework. So we really have some effect of the decline is the impact of telework and how we reorganized. And then that leveled off. And then beginning around a year ago, it also began to decline. And so what that really indicates is that we need to think about how we continue to engage in building our engagement programs. One fact I want to leave you with before we go too deep, because I don't want to go too deep in the numbers, I like to take questions, is one thing that I try to bring to the approach when you think about membership and how we have to approach it is we should think about everybody who's in the local 1,000 family, and let's say it's 100,000 people as, we're 100,000 state employees. Now, underneath that, there's a real effect that happens within state service, and you've seen this because you have your friends and your colleagues. We have this thing called this churn. It's a turnover of how many employees leave our roster for a variety of reasons, mostly probably retirement, but some have promotions, some are moving to other units, and who's replacing them. So when we look at the COVID period, what we've discovered is over the last 2 years, we've had around 24,000 state employees who were represented by Local 1,000 exit our bargaining units. 24,000. That is really 1/4 of the union. That is another way to put that is the union we knew before COVID, 1/4 of that union of those people who started COVID with us are no longer part of our represented units. And to replace those 24,000, we've had around 22,000 people come back in. So what is that? That to me is opportunity bill, because that is 21,000 people who are coming new to state service, where we need to focus and target and organize our membership campaigns to make sure that we are having conversations and contacting all those new employees to make sure we get them to sign up for our union dues. So this churn effect, this turnover, is really where we've seen where we have the greatest impact in terms of how our membership rates rise and fall. But more importantly, thinking about our membership and our roster in a dynamic perspective also tells us that that is where we have huge opportunities to gain new members. So I think about SEIU Local 1,000, and even though I've been here for 12, 14 years, so many years, the truth is that we're an ever-changing population of state employees, and how we think about engaging those state employees is perhaps one of the most critical strategic questions that we have to contend with and really prepare for as we get ready for bargaining. So I have a few things I can add to that, but the truth is, I'm ready to answer questions about how I think about that issue. Another thing to think about is, obviously, I think a lot about the state of the budget and the economy today. The May revise just came out. It could be that the state budget is passed anytime now. And that's a big issue for us, because we know that there's lots of money, and the newspapers talk about all the money that's available in the state coffers. However, the tricky thing about the California state budget, there's two things I've learned over the last 2 years dealing with the recession, is 2 years ago, if you remember, when people said there's a recession coming, it's a COVID-induced recession, we really thought, well, we really did experience a recession. Thousands and thousands and thousands of Californians, hundreds of thousands of Californians lost their jobs. And we thought it was going to be a recession similar to the one that we all experienced 10, 12 years ago after the housing bubble. So the state was prepared for that old model of a recession, and they were expecting this contraction in revenues that was going to happen as a result. But what happened? This recession was like no other recession. It targeted low-wage work, people who earn between in the lower quintile, or within the lower 20% of wage earners, and 25% is really where all the job loss was. However, the funny thing is, even though the economy tanked and many families, hundreds of families, suffered as a result of this recession, because of the way the state budget is structured, there was not, the impact on the state budget was not something that matched the economy. In fact, We've seen year-over-year growth in revenues through the general fund. And so it's been counterintuitive and it's been complex to think about how do we tackle what we know is a recession where people are hurting, inflation is high, and yet the state budget still has these massive amounts of surplus revenues that keep coming in. That shouldn't be happening because we normally think of one linked to the other. But in this particular type of recession, it's not. So it presents new challenges and new ways of thinking about how do we actually prepare for the ups and downs in the economy as it relates to bargaining and as it relates to building our membership strength and building our membership, our overall membership rate. So that's where I'm obsessed. That's what I've been thinking about a lot over the last couple of months, Bill. If it's not that, the only other thing outside, not the only other thing, but the only other thing that I really obsessive is a little clue about me. Before I came to Local 1000, I was actually an archaeologist who worked in South America for about 12 years. So if you want to talk about prehistory in Latin America, I can do that. But other than that, I would just like to have a conversation.
And between the bargaining teams, myself with the executive officers, we've had this group very busy for the last 8 weeks or so. And with that, let's welcome our first guest tonight with her hand up. Jill, can you unmute and join us?
Hi, Bill.
Welcome.
How are you, Bill?
I'm good. Do you have a question for Kenny tonight?
Actually, I have more of the statement to you. I'm getting complaints up and down the state in OSHA in my unit. I sent you an email over the director. We need to open that door with him because I'm getting complaints up and down the state. You want something said, you tell the admin staff what's going on, and this person, it'll fly like, I don't know what to call it. It'll fly. Let's put it that way. It's been a long day. So I sent you an email over that director.
So did you send it to my SEIU email or my personal email?
Yeah, actually, I think I sent it to SEIU.
I'm not
And
sure
that
I saw it.
individual that I had you I'll dig it up later, but
Okay.
that individual that you had a discussion with had a discussion with him too, and I'm a little worried about that conversation.
All right, well, we can talk about that offline.
Yep, we can.
So
But
no questions about research or how that impacts us going forward?
No, but I'd love to have an archaeology discussion with him.
Absolutely.
We'll have to bring back
Well,
Kenny. We'll bring back Kenny for another night,
I'll
Jill.
come back with my archaeology hat. So, yeah.
That's okay. He's got my email address. He can email me.
All right. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Good evening, Frank. Welcome.
Good evening, Chair Hall, and I just want to commend you on a great BOD this past weekend. You did a great job, and congratulations on passing the budget. And hello, Kenny. Nice to see you again. I remember you. One of the things that I consider when talking to potential new members and stuff is I let them know that we are all state workers, but at the end of the day, we're all brothers and sisters, and we work for all bargaining units inclusively. Case in point, the one matter that is really concerning to me is like down in the Riverside area for our Unit 15, the janitors and so forth. As you may have heard, they're increasing the parking rates and stuff, and I think it is just terrible how the janitors, they have to pay at least $400 a month for a parking permit just to do their job.
Absolutely, Frank. It's, and it's, even though I think we tried in the last contract to really do sort of a progressive distribution of the monies we got so that those at the lower wage, at lower scale of our pay range could, get a little bit more support moving forward to try to, just because you're living in California, with the parking increases as well as everything else we're facing, I know that we have our work cut out for us with not just Unit 15, but pretty much across the board. We have folks who are impacted by the parking issue across all units. And, and thank you for raising it. As you know, the research department, as we get ready for bargaining, we start meeting with the chairs in the units to start helping them support how they develop good, effective proposals to pass at the table. So I may be reaching out to you to get a little bit more detail on some of the parking stuff, because there's two things I've always said about how you prepare a good proposal for the table from the research component. You can have good data and you can have good numbers and it can make sense and logic. And the state sometimes doesn't even care, right? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But actually, I think having the data where you complement it with real stories and bringing the people and the information together is always the strongest proposal. So make sure you stay in touch with Eric and all the chairs who are impacted with where the parking is an issue. But I know for the custodians, especially those who work at night, that buildings are empty, the parking structures are empty, and sometimes they still have to pay for that parking. It's just ridiculous. And oftentimes DGS's scheduling could just take care of that too, but it doesn't happen always. But bringing faces and names to really personalize that issue is one of the most effective ways to make sure that we have the best proposals possible at the table. So thank you, Frank.
Yeah, so that's Jason Sandoval's DLC. That's Ontario, the Ontario State Building.
Yep.
And apparently that building has no parking.
Oh.
So the parking is a parking structure that's operated by the city next door. So they were at the last city hall meeting, and but this is a major issue. And the way the parking is currently structured, some of our custodial staff actually splits and would be required to buy 2 monthly parking passes, which is looking like it would cost them $800 a month.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
enough probably to have them thinking about getting another job,
Yeah.
right?
totally. That's a huge impact.
Yeah. Good evening, Octavio. Can you come join us?
How's it going?
Good. How are you tonight?
I'm good. So, one of the things that when I first came on, I noticed is that I didn't have an orientation with the union till like 6 months down the road. And I got hired in the middle of the pandemic, so I know that affected it. And also, like, I don't know why it changed, but before when you got hired as a state employee, automatically you were enrolled in the union. So I don't know if that has to affect the numbers. And also, I mean, I don't want to sound boorish, or I don't know how to put it, but even union dues kind of cut into our budgets. And I know you guys need money to do things. And I wish it was, the politics were different to where we didn't have to lobby against other people, and our union dues could be a little bit more on the fair side.
Okay. So it's not, so the pandemic really has made it hard for us to reach people. And we have a program that we're working on putting in place. There'll be major changes between now and the middle of September. We're back out in the work sites. We're actually out doing more new hires and new employee
Orientation.
orientations,
Orientations.
right? So that's actually happening. The importance of membership, Octavio, is really about power. The state looks at your union and it measures membership. And the essence of how they take that membership is, we're at 53-47. So they say 53% of the people care, they support the union. The 47%, they don't care, they'll take whatever we give them. And I've actually had the state say that to my face when I was at the bargaining table many years ago. So that's how the state looks at it. So if we want to improve our wages and working conditions, the onus is really on us, and how we build power to be able to move the state into a different position is through membership. Membership is everything. And the other piece of that comes with it is an organization of this size doing this work is a costly endeavor. I hope that answers your question. Thanks for calling in and raising your hand tonight. Good evening, David. Can you join us?
Yes, hello. So my
Welcome.
question is, yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So my question is, on the research side of things. So there was an attorney who was in one of the straight talks before, and she mentioned that we don't know who's sitting on the other side of the table. So if that, that research, that Apple research is going on, if you don't know who's sitting on the other side of the table, how will you know what to research on them? And also, is there any insight that you can give us from this past bargaining session that we had with our previous contract to find out what goes on? Who are the people there on the side of the state, so that we know who those people are? We know our bargaining team because I know SEIU mentions that, but we never know who's sitting on the other side, on the state side. And the second question is down to membership, and I know Bill and many others have said the power of membership. So, is there any way that the dues can be lowered so we can get more members in there? Because if we can get a lot of people to pay a lower fee, then that only increases our power at the table. So it'll completely throw the state for a loop whenever they do their check on who's a member and who's not a member, because outside of the inflation and everything that's going on now, $90 is and was a lot for folks to pay. So I mean, I'd love for people to just say like, hey, just pay $10-$20. I mean, I don't know if it's ever going to be that cheap, but I've talked to other members in CASE and in PEG. They're not paying as much as we do. So is there any way that we can make it a little bit more affordable across the board for all of our units?
So, David, I appreciate that. And ACE and PEG are not the same organizations we are. They don't represent the same number of bargaining units or the masses of people that we do. And just as a reflection, years ago when I worked as a union carpenter, I paid 2.4%. Most unions are around 2 to 2.5%. So, I mean, it would be nice if we could do it for less, but I think I would be really seriously misrepresenting things if I said that you could have an effective union on the cheap. I just don't see how that would pan out for us.
And on the other side, on the other point he brought up, Bill, I think it was Brooke who was on here, the director of the contract department. She talked about the way in which we bargain. And one of the things that happens is on a regular basis, the state sends us meeting confer notices. And so we actually, as a union, have a lot of negotiation that occurs, small impact bargaining between master contracts. So for better or for worse, with all the antagonism that always exists between management and labor, and the contract department and the URC are constantly negotiating with the stateside negotiators. So that team is typically appointed by the governor, but like the going back and forth and knowing who's there, it's not particularly unknown because of the way the process is set up for notices. So there's a little bit of knowledge sometimes but I would say for like the thing about opposition research and knowing who the negotiators are, while that matters in terms of knowing who the bargaining team, it still goes back to what Bill says, which is really its power, and its power with the governor, and its power with the legislature. It's about how do you get the backing of the legislator, and that's done through membership. It's done through, Omega was talking about COPE a couple of weeks ago, because at the end of the day, our MOU, just to give a perspective, the total cost of payroll for all of Local 1000 on an annual basis, how big are we in terms of payroll? is around $10 billion. And so that's just like salary. So it's an appropriation in the budget. So it's a budget process. It's subject to the legislature, and we have to have strategic pressure on the legislature and on the governor to really move to move when it comes to those financial negotiations. So who sits across for you is important, but it's also keeping that pressure through membership and through COPE on making sure that on the other side, the decision makers, what we hear is about the decision makers, know that we are demanding that they treat us with respect and acknowledge the hard work and essential work that everybody's done over the last 2 years.
And it also expands into our relationship with the international and the pressure that they can bring to
That's
bear, right?
Absolutely.
SEIU State Council, all the other SEIU locals across California that
Yeah.
support us when we need it.
Mhm.
It's a rather large web that's woven to make this all work,
Complex.
right?
Yeah,
And it's not linear,
it's not.
right?
No.
David, appreciate your question. I would address this individual by name, but I'm going to ask the senior librarian to unmute and maybe he can introduce himself.
Thanks, Mr. Hall. Yeah, I'm Ted Bloom. I'm over at the California State Prison, Los Angeles County. It's the only state prison in Los Angeles County, so we always get a lot of attention. We're in the desert. It's a 270 prison, meaning 270-degree prison. It's a big spread out prison. We got a lot going on there. If you notice, my background is no longer blurred because I found out the hard way last night that if I unblur it, you can actually see the books that I'm holding up in front of my camera clearly, right? Like this book, Strike by Jeremy Brecker, and he's written about 12 books on labor history, is a great book if you want to learn about the history of organized labor and why you should support unions like SEIU Local 1000. Plus, being this is the internet age, in the back, it has a URL, laborhistorylinks.org. It's a great site. You might want to check it out. Just in case you missed last night's Stewart meeting with Ms. Walls. Now, that's just a warm up. This is the book that I wanted to point out. Kind of a rare book when it comes to research. It's called How to Lie with Statistics by Darrell Huff. And I noticed that the guest is smiling. He's probably familiar with the book. This is a famous book. And this book basically is good for anybody who's going to be doing research or negotiating. For example, when they say average, do they mean the mean, the median, or the mode, right? When they say average, little things like that. If there's a graph, are the graphics used deceptively? Are they deceptively big compared to whatever the quantity is that's being discussed? This is a fabulous book. If you can get your hands on it, it's got an old copyright. Again, How to Lie with Statistics by Darrell Huff. Is our guest familiar with this book?
So I've heard the title. I've actually never read it, but I know exactly the concepts from it. And as soon as you said the graph, I was thinking about how you set your levels when you do a histogram to make sure like the scale's right. Because you can emphasize a trend any way you want and make it look dramatic. And I spend a lot of time thinking about visualization to make things as clear as possible. And it's a labor of love but when you see bad graphs and bad statistics presented, you also pick it up very quickly. And I think you and I are sort of on the same page. It's it's great. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and of course, any members can contact me if they have any research questions or library questions. If I can't get you the answer, I'll get you a source that can. No, I don't claim to be an expert on labor, but I have been a librarian, a licensed librarian since 2005.
Excellent.
Yeah, there's another fairly recent book out done by a past LA New York Times reporter. It's The History of Labor, Past, Present, and Future. And that one has been very interesting. I just finished that one a few days ago. That was very interesting because it takes like what's happening today and applies it to where we need to go from here. And I found that very helpful.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. Thank you for your time.
No, thank
Thanks
you.
for joining us
Yeah.
tonight.
My pleasure. So,
Hi, Shelby. Can you unmute and join us?
Yes, hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. I apologize. I have not been into any of the meetings the last couple of months. So if you answered this question in the last couple of meetings, I apologize. I'm for the prison. I'm an RN, so I'm bargaining unit 17. I just joined employee health, and I was just wondering, are they part of the budget, or are they not going to be included in the budget?
Well, statistically speaking, that was just a joke.
Are you saying employee health? Is that the health plan you selected? Is that what you're referring to?
No, employee health is a new program that has 2 RNs, 2 LVNs, analysis, and an MA, and they don't really have representation yet because I guess the union has to go to the table for them. So right now I guess I'm under the regular union 17, but people are saying I'm a union rep, so I haven't heard anything. It's all maybe just hearsay, but they're saying like if the program gets cut, then my my time doesn't go towards my time served as a state employee. So I'm just wondering if like somehow they're in the budget, or if you know anything about it, or never been
Sure.
discussed.
So we can ask 2 questions.
Yeah.
Which department do you work for right now?
CDCR.
Okay. And what's your appointment type when you were hired on? Are you,
Employee health registered nurse.
yeah, but are you, for example, a limited term employee? Are you
I'm permanent full-time.
permanent full-time civil service employee?
Yes.
So, I do not know whether that particular program or structure that you're part of is part of the budget.
Okay.
However, so whether that will continue or not, but one thing I do know at the sort of 30,000-foot view when it comes to sort of CDCR, and especially Unit 17 and Unit 20, is because of the way in which there's such a pressure on those departments and then also on our represented employees to meet those shifts and do that work, the demand for, I just don't see, even if your program changed, that the department would do anything to let a nurse who wants to work with the state, who's familiar with the department, like, go. So, there's no cuts to 17 in the budget. And, as you know, one of the things that we've been fighting for a long time is just the whole idea of mandatory overtime and how do we chip away at that? And also the staffing levels that are present in CCHCS and in CDCR. So I do not know whether the specific program you're part of is going to change or not. However, in terms of the overall status with the states, there's nothing that shows that there's any sort of focus reductions on 17. Does that give you a little bit of, does that answer your question somewhat?
Can you hear
Shelby,
me now?
yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, I was like, I try to mute myself while you're talking so my kids wouldn't be in the background. No, it doesn't. Maybe it's hard to explain. I am a state employee, so I won't be cut in any way. I guess what they were saying is they were trying to take the employees that went to this particular program away from being a safety nurse. So it would change our union, or it change our,
It would change your working conditions.
yeah. So I guess
So-
it changed other
So
things.
Shelby, I have seen quite a few notices come across my desk. I haven't seen anything about this.
Okay.
If you don't want to tell us what institution you're in, what region do you work?
Oh, I have no problem. I'm in PVSP. Pleasant Valley State Prison.
Because sometimes that makes a difference too, right?
Right.
We can look into that and see if we can get a little information for you. I hope Kenny wrote down your name so we
Yeah.
can find you again.
Okay, sounds good.
And
Yeah, I'll follow up with you, Shelby, because what I do is I'll see if we have any notices that came in specific
Okay.
to Valley. But maybe we'll just get on the phone too and have a little bit of deeper conversation so I can get a little bit more detail too.
Okay,
Um, Yeah, typically in the budget, something so local that's so specific might not be included, but it doesn't mean that there couldn't be administrative changes at your level. But I'll reach out to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
sounds good. Thank you.
well, thanks for calling in tonight. Good evening, Kai. Can you unmute and join us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thanks for taking my call and good evening. My question is that, with the inflation being what it is today, and I'm with bargaining unit 1, is the COLA, the maximum COLA negotiable? And if it is it on our, is it on the table right now for negotiation?
Okay. So you get a 2.5% pay increase July 1. While that's not really going to help us with what's going on currently, that's what it is. Now, typically, the state does not meet with any of its unions between contract cycles. They typically refuse to open the contract and renegotiate wages and expend it.
I'm sorry. My question is actually on the for the retiree, right? For retired people, there is a cost of living adjustment, which
That's
is
negotiated. That's negotiated somewhere else, Guy.
oh, okay,
Where
Okay.
that's over at CalPERS,
okay. see.
and where we can influence that is
Mm.
who sits on the CalPERS board. Like Teresa Taylor, one of our active DLC presidents, is currently the president of the board at CalPERS, and one of the past presidents, Yvonne Walker, is running for one of the retiree seats. So when you have labor-friendly people, especially people who came out of Local 1000,
Mm.
those are the people who influence those kind of factors.
Okay, so that's something between the employer and CalPERS? Negotiation?
The retiree COLA adjustment?
Yes.
Yeah, it's outside of the MOU negotiations. That's a
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good evening, Reggie. Can you unmute and join us?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I haven't been in one of these ever, but my experience, I've been working for the state for over, right around 28 years, and worked for Department of Corrections, also in Pleasant Valley, State Prison in Kalinga, and for EDD. That was my first assignment for EDD back in 1994, 1993, when both unemployment and job services were together. But it seems like with the new hires, a lot of them think that that $60, $70 is going to break them for some reason, and they're going to get rich by not joining the union. So where I come in with these guys is as soon as they start having problems and they start getting upset with some of their work duties or assignments, and they don't think that it's fair, this and the other, and I said, well, you wouldn't have this issue if you were a union member. So then I give them the number to call, and then they've always become members. But as with other unions, like I was also a school teacher for a year, but and my brothers and sisters that are still part of the, they still teach, their unions take them out, they give them like a dinner, they have prizes for them. And we've never had that I remember, or I've never been invited to a dinner like that, where you go to a nice banquet facility and different things are given and stuff. And maybe invite those, leave it kind of open to those new employees that really don't know how to become union members, to come in and hear a talk and, people share stories, nightmares, whatever they have gone through, and how things were resolved for the better. Um, and that's pretty much it.
Well, we appreciate that, Reggie. So what do you do for the state of California?
Employment program rep for EDD.
Okay, all right.
And one other thing,
Yes.
a few years ago, right before COVID, hit, we were supposed to, I believe, get a pay raise that July of 2020, and I think Yvonne Walker, or our union president, negotiated something so we didn't get that pay raise, or we weren't going to get a pay raise for about 3 years. So is this our first pay raise since 2019? Is this the first step, or have we gotten some like last year?
No, we got, it was last year, right? And we got both of them.
Yeah, so they compounded the first and second year pay raises. So last July 1st, you should have gotten a 4.55% pay raise, which combines the first year one that was suspended, and then the second year one with a little bit of the compounding.
And then, yeah, and they compounded. That was the
That's right.
extra 0.05, right?
Exactly.
And then you get 2.5 July 1. And again, that's not enough given the current inflation and prices of things, which is why we need to build strength to have a reasonable contract in 2023 instead of something which is on the low side. So we're gearing up to fight to get everything we can get.
And one other thing, when I worked at Pleasant Valley, this is, not sure, Arnold Schwarzenegger was our governor back then, and that's when we were getting furloughed. I think we were down to 3 days and stuff. So one of my friends that was a union rep, and he would go like to Sacramento to do negotiations and stuff like that, named Alan Stevenson, but he's already retired, I believe. And so we actually kind of protested out in front of the prison, and what I noticed, everybody was invited to come protest and stuff. He was there, I was there, a teacher was there. Everybody that was there, which weren't very many, probably 8 of us out of 1,000 employees. And we all had at least 15 years in, or close to 15, if not more. And nobody with less than that much state service was there. So they're, well, if they don't care, it's affecting them more than us, I believe. But, somehow to motivate these people with lower seniority, it seems like, what can you do with this?
Well, Reggie,
generation?
we have work to do, and we're working on the work, and Kenny helps guide us in the work when we ask him questions and need to know information. He will assure everybody that I've reached out to him and asked some pointed questions that created some interesting work for him a couple of times in the last few months. Yeah, see, he's chuckling. I was like, who is this group of people this is not well explained? Please go find out and tell me who these people are. So we're looking at things differently. Hang with us, encourage people to come with us, watch what we're doing, just don't listen to the words. And you're gonna see some different activity very shortly. So we appreciate you calling in.
Yeah, so I keep my ears open, and as soon as I hear somebody is a little unhappy, or they have me doing this, I don't think this is right, and I say, you're right, you shouldn't be doing this. What can I do? I say, well, first step is I want you to call the Member Resource Center and become a union member. Start paying your fair share.
I appreciate that, Reggie. I have a lot of hands up, and we want to get to as many people as we can tonight, so let me move on.
Okay,
Thank you. Hi, Heidi, can you unmute and join us?
Okay, perfect. Can you hear me?
We can.
All right, so I'm just going to ask 3 real quick questions since I can see that we've got a lot of people with their hands raised, so I want to respect everybody's time. First of all, I want to know how Local 1000 is addressing the critical staffing shortages with the health facility evaluator nurses. We know it's been identified as a critical staffing shortage for actually, come to find out, almost 10 years now. And a new report actually just went out, which I forwarded to Annika and David and our bargaining chair to kind of take a look at. So in that report, it was determined that public health is still identified as a significant concern because of the failure to address those staffing issues. Now, we know one of the reasons of the staffing issues, one of the reasons we have a failure to not only hire, but more importantly, retain, is the pay disparities, right? So the pay disparities between local 724 and local 1000. Everybody knows that, there's a $3,000 a month pay difference in those two. As a matter of fact, we just lost another nurse last week to LA County specifically because of that. And in addition, just fair market value in general, it's just not meeting it. And people, simply they can't pay their bills. So I'm wondering how Local 1000 is addressing that, and is International helping to address that. I also understand that SEIU Local 1000 is looking to raise membership dues. So I wanted to ask you, is that the case? And if that is the case, to what percentage, please? And then again, I'm just going to go ahead and reinforce what I've heard a few other people say. We absolutely need a strike clause in our contract. The state over and over again just continues to show absolute disrespect. And it seems like they feel because we don't have a strike clause, we have no teeth. And that's a concern. We need a strike clause.
Where do you want to start?
Well, I know when I was in the contract department, definitely back in 2016, I know we've tried to make sure that we have passed proposals for the HEFNs to try and bring that disparity up, because the research department has actually looked at sort of the LA, and I mentioned Local 724 is sort of the LA County, right? Because I normally hear about it as LA County.
So we're talking state workforce versus county workforce,
right? Exactly. And we know that there's a huge draw, or like a motivation for a lot of the state workforce to go there. And, we made some first steps back in, I believe it was 2016, when we got that. I'm not going to say it's large, but we got a small differential in the contract for the HEFNs who were actually doing work in the county. And the way, at least what I think about it strategically in terms of numbers and how we gain pressure and momentum, is we have a vehicle or structure in the MOU for trying to get more wages for the HEFNs. And now that we have that first step, how do we build on that and make that stronger? But that also ties back to the HEFNs also having high membership and being organized. And I'm not sure where the numbers are on that, but those are things we need to do to support the Unit 17 when they're going to the table. And I am for sure, I can't speak for the unit because, that's, Vanessa's the chair. But the HEFNs have been front and center as a topic of priority for that unit through all negotiations. And it's just going to continue to take pressure, momentum, and membership building to do that. And to get CDPH to employer interested, because it's not for lack of trying that we haven't passed the proposals, but the department has to care and the department has to advocate. One of the things that's kind of interesting when you pass SSA or wage proposals or GSIs, but let's talk about a classification specifically. You have a better chance when the department is also supporting the increase, and the union, of course, is fighting hard for that increase. And then you have the third component at the table, which is CalHR and the governor. So there are sort of examples in the past where we've had departments say, hey, we need this because our custodians here, for example, are doing medical grade work, right? And so how do we make sure that those custodians who are in those institutions doing the blood and guts cleanup? Well, CalPIA would be like, yeah, we really need to get a special range for that type of work, which is slightly different than other custodial work. But it's CalHR and the governor also have to come to the table and agree. So, I think like we talked earlier, it's about the pressure that we put on the legislature. It's about the pressure that we put on the governor. I know that our legislative team has been working through the legislature, trying to target and focus on that CDPH funding to see if we can get your department more money. But that's just half the step. Just because the department may get $100 million augmentation in their budget funding for this year, it doesn't necessarily translate that that's going to be a direct impact on any particular classification in that department. But those are the building blocks. It's a complicated web. Get more money, put pressure on the legislature, get the department in alignment, and then build on those proposals or on those MOU terms that we already have to try and get a vehicle to get the Heffens, I think, to be competitive in the market, like you say. But it's this complicated web, but it also gets tied back into making sure that every Heffen that we have out there is a member, because it's like you said, Bill, if we pass a proposal for any classification, that is a specific classification proposal, which, depending on the classification has advantages or disadvantages, the first thing the state does is they bring out those membership numbers and they say, whoa, this is the membership. So we have 1 year to get, less than a year, but we have less than a year to get prepared to make sure that the best proposals that we can strategically pass at the table are as supported both by the research that supports that and the membership that supports that, as well as the significant impact that we would want to bring to life at the table, right? So the story of the Heffens, which we've done, but we have to also get CDPH to support that too. So if all those things are in alignment and we're doing our maximum pressure, it has a higher probability of having a positive outcome. And that's something that we tried to do in 2016 by getting that first differential in there, but it's not sufficient. Everybody knows it's not enough. So that's just strategically how research would tie into trying to support that.
So along with that, the next question you had, there are no plans that I'm aware of to raise union dues. I would not support raising union dues at the moment, or probably in the future. And there is policy file language that says for any change up or down in the union dues, it goes to a full membership vote. So the dues rate is not going to change. And then on the no strike clause, the no strike clause is an interesting animal. And if you were here for Brooke's presentation and some of the reading that I did on labor history, the no strike clause is typically inserted by management agreement into the contract for delivering a grievance process onto the union. So you have a way to work through your complaints and your issues without going on strike. Now, with that said, there's another piece of this. So there is a process during labor negotiations where you reach what's called an impasse. So if you've gone and you've negotiated in good faith and you've done that for a period of time and you just cannot reach an agreement, your contract has expired. So our contract typically expires June 30th. So if the contract expires on June 30th, you have no agreement in place, you've reached impasse, then you have the right to strike. Now, Jerry Brown actually went to court and tried to get the judge to say we didn't have the right to strike, and he lost that court case. And within hours, we had a settlement. So I think if you can mount a credible threat for a strike, that's more important than the actual strike itself. So what does it take to have a credible, threat? It takes having probably 75 to 80% membership who is also active and engaged. I hope that answers all your questions. Did you have anything else before we move on?
No, I think the big challenge, at least that we've noticed among the health facility evaluator nurses in getting membership, is that the ones who have stuck around and have been with the state for longer than 5 years, they've seen the performance and how SEIU has advocated for them in the past, and they're not happy. I mean, I don't even have to speak for us. It's the OIG report that speaks for us. It's the state report that speaks for us. It's the legislature that called us on the carpet 2 years ago because all of these patients were dying in nursing homes because there was a failure to provide the necessary care. I'm hoping that will change, but until then, people are kind of, they're waiting to see what they're going to get before they're willing to put their money down, unfortunately. And that's
Well-
even if we can get people to stay 5 years. I think we're at a 20%, in some offices even greater vacancy rate. And that's a significant issue.
It is.
And in fact, the report that I just emailed to you guys, I think a week or two, shows you, which offices are at what rates. But it's a significant issue, and because they've eliminated the hire above minimum, now they're trying to hire nurses for $2,000 less, even than what they were a year ago. So they're not able to get anybody because they removed that hire above minimum. It's a joke. It's now $5,000 less legitimately than LA County. And it's why we get people who train in our office. And then if they're in Ventura, if they're in Orange, they just go to LA County.
Sure. And the unfortunate side of it is this just demonstrates how little the state actually understands or cares about their workforce. It's really a unfortunate, and at the end of the day, it does the population of the state as a whole a disservice. Thanks for calling in. We'll move on. Good evening, Mario. Come join us.
Hello, Ken, right?
Kenny.
Kenny, hi. Yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I like to talk about South American archaeology myself, but I want to talk about numbers right now.
All right.
What is the number of members, paying new numbers we have for March 1st, 2022, April 1st, 2022, May 1st, 2022, and June 1st, 2022? My second question is this: how many injuries and illnesses have we had in the SEIU membership ranks? Thank you.
Well, I think your question is going to stump me because I don't know the previous months, but we're around 98, 99,000 state employees now. And as we said
We're
earlier,
actually down to 97.
we're down to 97.
Because it's been shedding. So Mario, this is kind of interesting. One of the dynamics we're dealing with, and it was something that I actually asked Kenny to work on, is that we're losing state employees. And where were we losing those? Those are the limited term hires that were hired into EDD to deal with the pandemic. They were 2-year limited terms, and those people are going away. Our current membership number is around 53,200 and something. The month before it was 53,700 something. So where we're losing is in retirees, actually people leaving state service. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of those, if we could track them down, would be people like Heffens who can get better work someplace else. And then we have the shed, the reduction of the overall state employees. So where we were at one point, just over 100,000, now we're down substantially.
Respectfully, I only asked for the membership numbers. I didn't ask for all the state membership, Kenny. So April 1st, how many pay due members do we have in April 1st, and also March 1st? Thank you.
Yeah, Mario, I just don't have that information in front of me. I don't have.
Okay, good. I'll you got an email address? I'd like to have that numbers.
Yeah, sure. My email address is ksims@seiu1000.org.
Okay,
and on the injury thing, that's a more complicated question because sort of injuries,
and
are
illnesses.
So we don't necessarily have sick use data, right? So illnesses is like, as you know, when an employee is using sick leave or they're ill, that is private and protected. So we actually don't get sick leave data that would tell us, we don't actually get an illness report, right? We don't even get a sick leave report. But when you take sick leave, you actually don't have to disclose whether you're ill or not, or maybe it's a mental health day, or maybe your kid's sick. So even though we have broad summaries of sort of some types of leave banks and maybe sick leave banks, but not necessarily, it doesn't tie necessarily back to illness because that's private, right? All that is protected, and the union actually doesn't necessarily have the right under the DILS Act to receive information from the employer on who's sick and who's ill. And then the other thing that's more complicated with injuries and illnesses is a lot of that data is sort of structured at the department level, and in CDCR, for example, at the worksite level. So I've known in the past when we've tried to figure out sort of OSHA reports and where do we see illnesses and can we, not illnesses, but injuries on the work, some of that data is not necessarily always easily to access. As you know, we have around 130 departments where we have employees. So that is really disaggregated data that is kept in different ways under different standards, and sometimes, difficult to even get in terms of, where those injuries are happening. We've had some data with that in the past, but it tends to be high in sort of our 24-hour institutions, which goes along with also where our employees who are under sort of the safety pension plan also have that. But that data specifically is not something that we currently have access to.
Then Ken, I need to talk with you, Ken, because that data is available respectfully. Is to the under the OSH Act, Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970, all employers are required to record their injuries and illnesses, okay, if it occurred at work.
Yeah.
Okay, that data is there. Now, it does require work.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong, to differentiate between bargain number 7 or 11 and bargain number 1. But that can be that can be easily obtained through.
So yeah, that's the thing that I didn't know, whether it actually can be disaggregated by our bargaining units versus other bargaining units, right? Because that would be the thing that, like, if there is a big pool of data, which I have never come across, but if you're going to shoot me an email, certainly shoot me a source to the data.
But because it's very important, Kenny, because I think health and safety is actually more important than even wages, is the health and safety conditions of our employees, our members. Yeah. So that way, when they retire with their pension, they can enjoy it with their families.
Absolutely. Okay. That's absolutely
and
true.
we at Caltrans, we lost a worker just 2 weeks ago, and it's very sad, but that's just an example.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd appreciate any information, because, the truth is there's so much data out there. So if there's something useful, it'd be great to know.
Yeah, and it's actually public record, Kenny. And actually the employer is required to post the OSHA 300 log actually at the workplace, actually, as well.
Right.
By not only by department, by location as well.
Right.
Okay, so I don't want to argue too much, but I kind of know these things because of one thing this union really needs to do is promote health and safety, which I find respectfully lacking, quite frankly, especially in CDCR and especially with nurses, regards to workplace violence. Okay, we had a nurse die up there in Napa Valley several years ago, for example. Also, aerosol transmission diseases, ATD, which is which a scope application is for CDCR. But there's other hazards that we really need to identify, so that way in the contract we can put language there to protect our members, respectfully. I'm just saying. I'm just offering that.
Thanks for bringing that up, Mario, tonight. And yes,
that's very important.
It was very sad that we lost an employee at Caltrans.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't mention it last week. Thank you, Bill.
In Fairfield last week. Well, actually, Mario, I actually knew her, and I was pretty set back by that. It was a hit and run, and the highway patrol had to go chase the driver down. So yeah. And I don't think the state really truly at the end of the day recognizes the hazards that a large number of Caltrans employees work under.
Oh, they do. They do.
Yeah.
No, I'd make a difference on that. The director, Tokes, Lori Berman, Kelly Tagiawa, they have been very, very proactive as far as safety. However, they still need help. They need numbers to show to implement programs that are needed to protect members. And that's where the union can really help. No, they're very good. I'm really proud of the directors' leadership at Caltrans. They do care, respectfully, Bill.
All right.
But you got to
thank-
show them how to do it properly. That's all.
All right, thanks, Mario. Good evening, Eddie. Can you unmute and join us? Are you with us, Eddie? Oh, maybe we'll come back in a minute. Maybe you step. Oh,
Hello.
there you are.
Hello,
There you
hello.
are. Welcome.
Hey. Hello, so my name is Eddie Palomares. I'm part of the bargaining unit 3 at Calipatria State Prison, and my officer, I know that you guys sort of answered the question though, but I just wanted to get clarification. My officer told me today that I guess Senate Bill 1 passed with the the House in California about the 8% increase for state workers. And I was wondering if we're included in it at all, including bargaining unit 6 correctional officers.
I do not know. We're not included. I don't think, no, we're certainly not included in it. And it's it's an 8%, it's an 8% increase, but I believe it's over 3 years, right? Is that what you're referring to?
I'm not exactly sure though, because even in the bill, it says it included like specific workers. I don't know what it was. It was like healthcare workers and other types of workers, but yeah, social workers. But I was thinking, well, it says state workers. It should include us technically, right? So I was just wondering if we could use that, I guess, as leverage. You know, if the bill does pass, as leverage for our next contract signings to say, hey, you know what, these guys are getting 8%. I don't know if it's over the 3 years. Supposedly, it's going to start July 1st.
Okay. Well, it's something for us to look at and look into and see if it has strategic leverage. Because typically any increases for state workers are going to go in their MOU negotiations, which becomes just part of like the budget bill.
I think they're one of the units that's currently
Negotiating.
at the table.
Okay.
And Eddie, from, I think, the perspective of the bargaining group, 8% over 3 years is not adequate for us. Might be if you're already making, corrections officers' wages, but we need more than that.
Oh yeah, but when I saw is that the bill increased 8% on July 1st, like 8% automatically, I guess to combat the inflation. So that's why I was wondering. Oh, that's my officer was saying, oh, it's great because he was going to retire this year, but he said, oh, if there's an 8% increase, well, might as well retire next year. But I told him, like, I don't know if it includes us. I mean, that's why I was asking you guys if
I don't believe. Yeah, I don't believe that includes us, Eddie. We're not at the table.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I was just wondering though. Thank you so much.
Understood. Good evening, Stephanie. Can you unmute and join us?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Sorry, my voice is not at its best right now. I work for the Franchise Tax Board as a Kia operator. I have had some things that I need to speak to a union rep about, and I have not been able to get a hold of anybody. When I did my new, because I'm a new employee, did the new employee presentation, we didn't actually get to meet the union rep, so I don't even know who to go to, who to call. I mean, I called the union and asked for, somebody to give me a call back. They have, but we've been playing phone tag. I can't answer my phone while I'm working. It affects my production. And I'm having some issues with my production at work because I need special accommodations that they're refusing to give me. My question is there anybody that I can get in contact? Is there anything that you can help me with on this? It's frustrating for me. I thought, the union's here to help us, and I'm trying to do my work. Like the lady said last week, what can you do for your union? Not what the union can do for you. I'm doing the footwork, but I'm not getting anything. I shouldn't say not any help because they are calling me back, but I can't speak to them because I'm working. What am I to do? I mean, can you guys help me with this, or is there somebody you can refer me to?
We can try. So first thing I would say is, I wrote down your name, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Shoot me an email, bhall@seiu1000.org, and give me some after hours contact information for you.
You want my email or my phone number?
I would start with if you're comfortable, I would start with a phone number.
Yeah, I'll give it to you right now. It's 209.
No, don't give it to me now, because
Okay.
you don't want to put it out to the whole world, okay?
I don't really care.
Send it to me in an email, and And, give us a time frame when it's best to call you. And we'll work on getting back to you directly.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's all I asked.
Okay.
Thank you.
Gee, you made it easy on us
That's
tonight.
easy, yeah.
Good evening, Antoinette. Can you unmute and join us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, my name is Antoinette Gaines. As you know, I am a laboratory assistant. We are in R11, and like I said, I'll make this quick. I don't understand why we're not in R20 with the medical and the lab techs. We also have been overlooked for years. I have worked coming up on my 19th year, and I barely take home $2,200 per month. I hate to retire, but I'm just speechless. But anyway, we are overlooked. I'm pretty sure everybody on this call, somebody takes some form of medication. We have to go into the inmate cells. We draw during this COVID. I wanted to know if we were part of the essential workers pay. Again, we are overlooked. I'm so frustrated. I don't really know how to speak. I worked with his name's not Bill, but he was on the Caltrans people. We're with Caltrans. I don't know if they think we draw blood on fish, but we draw blood on felons. We have to be up and close. If you've ever had your blood drawn, you know how close people are. And we do this every day. We're not recognized. We're not appreciated at work. And I just want to know, are we up for any type of raise, laboratory assistance?
That's a question that I don't know if we can answer directly. I mean, I can tell you that we're working on a general salary increase for everyone. You can reach out through your either local bargaining person, or you can call the MRC and ask to get in contact with Brad Willis, the unit chair. You're not the only one who's unhappy with your wages and working conditions in the line of work that you do. And why you're in Unit 11 is because when the state created the bargaining units many years ago, they broke people up and put them based on their determination. So Unit 11 is a lot of tech. You were seen as tech, so they stuck you in Unit 11. I understand that in your situation, what you do is a lot of more medical work, and it would make sense to me for you to be over there, but that's how you ended up in Unit 11.
Yes, sir. I worked with Mr. Willis way back in 2006. He had me gather the people that were paid union members, what people got paid on the outside compared to what we got paid. And we thought we were working in the right direction. And then he just ghosted us, and we've never heard from him again.
Well,
can you tell me your email?
Sure.
May I email you?
You can, but I'm going to direct you back to Brad probably, or some other area of bargaining. But you can email me, bhall, Hall, at SEIU1000.org.
.org. Okay, I don't want to take up a lot of time. There's a lot of hands, and I will do that. Thank you for just listening.
Well, yes, and thanks for calling in and being part of the program tonight. It's without you, there's no reason for us to be here.
Thank you.
Good evening, Stephanie. Can you unmute and join us?
Hello, good
Hi.
evening.
Good evening.
Hi, I have a question. I've been a state employee for many, many years, but during the time that I'm off sick, that's dead time. I was wondering if there's anything that can be done, because I'm still actually employed with the state, but if I'm sick, they don't count that time as seniority for me. My sister works for another agency, not the state. And when they're off work, they still, their seniority keeps going. With us, it's different. And I was wondering if there's anything to be done about that.
I mean, the concept of seniority and what counts as eligible time worked, whether you're on sick leave or vacation, I think it's in the realm of the either SPB or it's, for like the definition of seniority, I think is not defined particularly in the MOU.
No, I think it's actually government code.
Government code, yeah. And so that might be, it might almost be beyond scope in terms of negotiation, just because of where it resides. I don't know specifically because I'm not a lawyer. That's a good question for when there's a lawyer on the program. But the way I've always seen seniority referred to in the MOU and where we have the ability to talk about seniority is typically how seniority counts towards, for example, certain rights in the MOU when it comes to post and bid, or other types of, or in the layoff process, right? So we don't define seniority in the MOU, it's defined externally. In the MOU, you really just see seniority as a measure for purposes of establishing certain rights when it comes to bidding, layoff, and I think there's 2 or 3 other areas where seniority is calculated for scheduling. For example, our Unit 15s, our correctional supervising cooks, seniority applies in a very particular way, but we don't get to define it specifically as it relates to whether it counts towards service.
Yeah, because that was my concern. I'm getting older and, I'll be retiring, sometime in the next few years. And that's just dead time. And I was wondering, about that. Also
Well-
go ahead, I'm sorry.
You don't get docked on your retirement for vacation or sick. I don't believe that impacts your retirement.
I was not necessarily speaking about the
Okay, all right.
vacation or sick, but just the time served. But I'll check into it, maybe with an attorney or whatever. I just wanted to put it out there to see. Also, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So Stephanie, if you reach out to CalPERS, they're a great resource for giving you all the information around service time, time counted and applied to retirement. They do a great job.
Yeah, I know how much, basically how much time I have. I was just concerned that, like I said, different agencies, I guess, calculate different, or they let you continue on the books and you're continuing to be calculating, as the time that you've worked, but not with the state. If I'm off sick, then a lot of times, well, all the time, that time is just dead time. It's not counted towards my tenure.
Okay.
So I'll look into it. But another thing, a lot of times, because I've been off and I was trying to retain my benefits, and it was like pulling teeth to get to the right department to get assistance to retain my dental. That was the main thing. I got the medical and the vision, taken care of, but it was, especially with the COVID and people working from home, it's just really hard to get good service, and the communication is really really mute.
Okay, we appreciate that.
Yeah, so those are some things I think that just should be set in place. We do pay the union dues, so to be able to get representation and to fight for those things to be put in place ahead of time, because when you're off, sick, you're already going through, and then you have to deal with who's on first and not really getting anywhere, but at a stalemate. So for me, I wouldn't want anybody else to go through what I've been having to go through to get those things accomplished.
All right, Stephanie, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Alma. Can you unmute and join us?
Hi, yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, this is Alma calling from Valley State Prison, Bargaining Unit 17. My only concern, to be honest with you, is just our essential worker premium pay. I know there has been some discussions I've seen in writing on the website regarding a $1,500 one-time payment. Now, I do feel like that is a huge just misrepresentation of what we actually deserve, being, that we were, the essential workers that were putting our face forward. We were, issued mandates during this time for the past 2 years. We took our 10% pay cut. And I can tell you personally that that is one of the reasons that I've seen a lot of nurses in my department leave the union and stop paying their dues because we've seen custody receive about $5,000 for their hero bonus pay or whatever they might call it, yet we haven't received anything when we've been the ones providing care.
And so, Alma, a couple of things. You're correct. We are back at the table talking with the state. Back in March, the state was not actually talking with Local 1000 at all. So we are back at the table. They passed a proposal to us. We have not responded with our counter. I would agree with you that $1,500 is not appropriate. I just saw the correctional officer $5,000 the other day, and they already make a lot more than we do. Just a quick question. What do you think a fair number would be?
I believe anything at least comparable to those 5,000, to be honest with you, because I can tell you personally, when I was there being the only one swabbing those inmates, plenty of these officers would step a lot further back just to make sure they weren't in that danger zone while we were the ones, providing that care, being mandated to do so with very little resources, a few amount of peppers that we had to reuse, clean in 104-degree weather in the valley, bringing this home possibly to our families. So I do feel that we deserve a lot more, being that we were, taking our 10% pay cut at that time. There was plenty of people on unemployment receiving stimulus money, extra payments, while we were the ones taking the full load of that, of that horrible situation.
We are in alignment. I can tell you that your bargaining team is in alignment with you. And like I said, we haven't made a counter to the state. And that was the state's offer. But we got to start somewhere, right?
Correct.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for calling in. We only have a few more minutes. I want to see if I can get to a few more calls. Good evening, Dina. Can you unmute and join us? You've been waiting patiently?
Yeah, actually I have a question that was, regarding what another caller in had raised. Is it posted on the website, the 2.5% increase? Is that really going to happen in July, and for which bargaining units?
It's for all represented by Local 1000. It's a general salary increase. It's 2.5% July 1.
Okay.
So you will be getting it.
All right. Thank you. That was it. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks. You stayed on a long time for that.
Well, I've been through like a couple of meetings just to get that answered because it had been brought up.
All right. Well, we appreciate you sticking with us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Good evening, Shirley. Can you unmute and join us? Hi, Shirley.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
I'm Shirley Salas, Bargaining Unit 3 out at Chuckawalla CVSP in Riverside County, and we are working to get, want everybody to know, to get our recruitment and retention bonus back. We're not excluded, but we don't have it. And I believe Bargaining Unit 17 is excluded. Now, this is not a statewide issue, for bargaining unit 3. It's a local issue because we are a remote location. Like today, when we got out of work, it was 109. And most of us, or not all, but a good proportion of us have to commute a minimum of an hour and a half just to get into our work location. So we want to get the word out that we are working for our retention, because we're the only ones who don't get it in our locations.
Okay. We appreciate that. I saw Kenny made some notes. Thanks for calling in.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Hey, Shelby, you're back. Did you have something else that you forgot earlier?
Yeah, I know a lot of people are gonna really hate me for this, but let me give you my background real quick. I've been a state employee for 15, 20 years, somewhere around there. I've been an LVN and RN inside and outside, and all RNs do is complain about pay. You know, they get paid one of the best out of the state employees. So is there a way we can get with the like negotiating team and maybe, I mean, we're not going to get more pay raises. Come on, we're in a, we're in a bad state. Like, can we maybe like get like time? Is there a way we could get with the negotiating team and discuss like time? Like if you put time on the books, they could always pay, they could always like take that out for pay, you know, or more time on the books that they can use to be home. You know, like there's other ways to get pay other than a pay increase raise monthly.
Okay. We appreciate that, Shelby. I think most people would say they need dollars to put in a gas tank.
Well, we get paid a lot
Okay.
as
well,
RNs.
And
Okay.
And I don't know if Unit 17 is able to tap into this, but are you referring, for example, the use of like the personal leave, like the voluntary personal leave program, where you would take a fraction pay cut for time off? Is that what you're referring to, or
No,
time on the?
I meant like maybe like instead of if they can't do a pay raise that everybody's begging for, a possible like an extra 8 hours a month on
Got it.
vacation. There's other ways to get a pay raise other than a monthly pay is what I'm saying.
Got it.
That's more
Okay.
negotiable, you know?
Yeah, great, thank you. Now I got clarity. I'll take a note.
We understand, Shelby, and we can pass that on up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mary. Can you unmute and join us?
Thank you. I'm so excited to be able to speak to both you and Kenny, Bill. As you know, my name is Mary Dela Cruz. I'm bargaining unit 17, and I actually was on the bargaining team in 2016.
Oh, yeah. I know.
And there was a lot of work that was done. We have been, HFENs have been working with Omega. We spoke on the legislature on behalf of, to be able to try to grab some of those funds that are available out there. And I think a lot of it is a lack of education or a need to educate. And I'm so glad, Bill, that you said that you're still at the table negotiating, because I'm bargaining unit 17, which is a unique bargaining unit where we are all just RNs. We don't have any other classification, or what's not the word classification, but we're all registered nurses. However, within that registered nurse category, where there's such a disparity in pay. And Kenny, or Bill, if I may address the issue, we as HFENs, our job is more of enforcing. And what we do, we go into the CDCR, the institutions, when there's a complaint, and we go in to investigate, you know, but HFENs aren't allowed or are not offered safety pay, shoe allowance, clothing allowance. There's a lot of things in bargaining unit 17 that does not pertain to all bargaining unit 17. Although I could be walking side by side with you, Kenny, in CDCR, because I'm investigating. So, you know, we've brought that up. Hopefully that'll be addressed. The most important thing, Bill, because you're still in negotiations, we would like, because rumor has had it that because we're technically not working in a hospital or working in an institution, we would not be considered as part of that group. However, that's not our home base, but we work in those institutions. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So go ahead.
I do, Mary, and a lot of that was brought up at the table. That is a concern of the bargaining team. It's been expressed amongst the bargaining team. And like I said, we did not pass a proposal back to the state at this time because the team is still formulating that proposal in response.
I appreciate that, Bill. And I think if not all bargaining 17 non-institutionals are not included in that, it would just increase the gap of disparity more so.
Understood.
I think Heidi, really quick, Heidi brought up the fact about the LA County nurses, and Kenny, we gathered all that resource and had given it to Kim and Vanessa. And I will tell you, this might be something that you can utilize is those LA County nurses. They come through, I'm an HFEN, but I'm a trainer for all registered nurses that are coming to survey. We train the LA County nurses. CDPH has gone into a contractual agreement with LA County so that we will do all their training, knowing that they're in contract with them and they make $3,000-$4,000 more a month. You know, our director has submitted to CalHR the need for an increase, and you might be aware of that. So hopefully that can be leveraged when at this next bargaining table.
Absolutely, Mary. And you know, it's not just like the salary disparity data, it's the context, it's the department support, it's the reality of the situation, it's the talent drain that happens. And so as you know, in 2016, we fought so hard and we just got started, but we have to keep going. And I appreciate the fact that you have that experience. So as we move forward through the next year, you know how we have to roll up our sleeves because it's going to be a battle no matter what. But
so thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
So it's 8:03. We ended 8. I need to be respectful to my IT team and not keep them here too late tonight. I've messed up on that in the past. I have 8 or 9 hands up. I apologize for not getting to you tonight. Please come back and join us next week. And if you're a little quicker with your questions, we'll get to you. Have a great evening, everybody. And please remember, membership is actually everything. So thanks and have a great night.
Thank you.